Can we just appreciate how nice trilogies are? I don't know if it's some kind of human bias towards the number 3, or maybe just how good something has to be to get 2 sequels, but I feel like media and trilogy format is just instantly better and way more respected. It's just more developed when you have an entire beginning, middle, and end piece, like the Modern Warfare trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy, Metroid Prime trilogy. Star Wars and Lord of the Rings only release as trilogies. God himself is a trilogy. So, I mean, these are masterpieces, revered throughout time and idolized by audiences and creators alike. And again, I don't know why 3 is the magic number for this type of stuff, but what I do know is that there comes a day when every trilogy decides. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with having a 4th entry. Sometimes it's even the pinnacle of the series. But when you have a trilogy where every single one is already great, it is almost always the 4th entry that is going to cause problems. No one is safe from the 4th curse. It happens with movies, it happens with music, it happened with my brother. But in the example we're going to talk about today, it happened with a video game. Because when it comes to Professor Layton, let me just show you in a very simple way what that looks like. 1, 2, 3. Huh? With game number 3, Professor Layton's story had just wrapped up into a nice, neat little package, and Level 5 was pleased. The 3-part series they had planned performed wildly above expectations, and some might allege that they should have been happy with just that. But there was an issue. Money! The root of all evil, or in this case, the root of all prequel. I mean, luckily for, and because of us, the series was still extremely lucrative. To end it now would be to forfeit millions. So shortly before the release of game number 3, the last in the original trilogy, Level 5 announced not 1 game, not 2 games, but 3. All starting with the first game, 4th game called Professor Layton and the Ocarina of Devil. No, it's called Professor Layton and the Last Specter here in North America, which is a good name for spoiler reasons. I think I like Europe's title a little better this time, Spectre's Call, which is a clever reference to the British play An Inspector Calls. It's the last game we'll have to go through with the regional titles, and it's also the last Professor Layton for the DS, but there's another really important thing here. This new trilogy was actually going to be a prequel series, which to me wasn't the best news. Prequels are a limited form because no matter what you do, the outcome has to stay intact, which is a problem when at the same time, your series was starting to become dry. Level 5 released 3 magnificent games in 3 years, but even the last one that took the story to new heights was seen as more of the same in reviews, barely managing to distract the audience from its overly consistent formula. Stopping or taking a break would have made sense. Instead, they were going to roll out that 4th game within a year. So they needed to shake things up to convince us that building back was worth the risk. Hino even went to the press to assure fans of just that. Because remember, it wasn't 1 game Level 5 announced, but 3. Was there really enough here for a feasible story, and could these games evolve the formula? You can't do anything crazy, you can't kill the professor, which is something they somehow do anyway. Okay, my only spoiler, you can't give him a happily ever after either, because whatever you do has to answer to the canon of these 3 games. Do you see the dilemma here? Level 5 had put the series, which was growing stale, into a situation where it narratively could not outdo the game before it. And I'm outlining this right now because I think if people had kept these expectations in check going in, there might be a different story that comes at the end of this video. See, everyone seems to remember the original trilogy with lots of fondness and love, but when it comes to the prequel trilogy, people are so split. They have tons of opinions about it. So let me give you the correct one, mine. I wasn't exactly hyped for this game. I loved the 3rd one, but it kinda dropped the ball in terms of atmosphere, and what even is a Spectre? Isn't that like this thing? But nevertheless, I spent the past school year playing the original trilogy, and for the first time, I was going to participate in launch day culture. I was gonna play the game the day it came out, and I did that on an R4. I'm not proud of myself, guys. I went and bought the actual copy later on to support Level 5, but back to the point. I don't remember tons about this game. I remember enjoying it just about as much as Unwound Future, if not slightly less or more. So for the sake of, I'm kinda over this preamp, let's just jump into it. It's time to run our usual playthrough. Now bear with me because the emulation is not great. There's a lot of texture issues that I will do my best to edit out. And also, since this game didn't get an HD re-release, at least as of now, the cutscenes are upscaled thanks to, yeah, you guessed it, world-renowned Good Samaritan and winner of Best Facial Hair in the UK 6 years in a row, Dearest Herschel. Last but not least, I record this in several takes because it's a big video, and it's normally not super noticeable, but because it's fall, I have allergies, so you're gonna notice some changes in the voice, and let's just pretend everything is okay. So with that in mind, let us begin a whole new era of Professor Layton. Welcome to the Last Specter's Call of Duty. This time, our first cutscene is of an unknown character reading a story about a girl and flute to another man whom he calls Master. Two dudes in candlelight, chilling 5 feet apart because they're not. Well, there are a few theories. The scene finishes with the men planning something, and we suddenly cut to a gorgeous nighttime village where we find our old favorites like Professor Layton, Luke, and Banana Woman, all three discussing what sounds like some sort of monster. And then a flute begins to play. Everything starts shaking, and Professor Layton, who clearly never experienced earthquakes.
Quickly, to the window!
What is that thing?
Can this be?
Spectre.
So the Spectre continues to destroy things, and just let's make sure to keep a nice long mental photo of what this guy looks like. Got it? Good. Title card, and we flash by. I know, it's crazy. We've never seen Professor Layton open with a flash forward sequence before. Hino wasn't lying. Now we are in the prologue where we see the same mystery woman pull up to Gressenheller University, and then a letter being delivered to Professor Layton, who is relaxing, which we never see him do. I mean, this is the early beginnings, as the prequel trilogy promised. He gets a letter and is visibly perplexed before declaring he's leaving.
Thank you, Rosa.
As the professor drives away, the mystery woman pursues him where she nearly causes an accident, and the professor is concerned, which he should be, because this woman is a Fed and has been tracking his location by his IP. If only the professor had used NordVPN. The lady reveals that she has been assigned as his assistant. It continues from her point of view, where we can tell she has a great respect for the professor and, if anything, just wants to bring him a bit more comfort in his hectic study work schedule. She asks what kind of mystery we're taking on this time, and the professor, well, pop quiz. How does every Professor Layton game start? A dream sequence, B, a trip to McDonald's, or C, a letter about a mystery.
We're going to McDonald's.
What's this? A letter?
No, it's a fucking yokai watch. Professor Layton's friend Clark writes about a supposed big monster that's been attacking his town. He knows his friend well enough to trust his word, but Emmy is naturally a bit wary of this story. When the professor says, "You know what's even more odd? The secret message," gather around, bitches. Puzzle 1. Give it up for puzzle 1. I didn't fail this one. It's stupid easy. It just spells out help sauce. The two question why Clark wouldn't just ask for help rather than be cryptic, and Emmy describes the situation as Layton-esque, which is how I describe Henry Hatsworth and Dr. Lautrec. Also, are you catching on to what's happening here? The professor receives a letter from someone vaguely familiar living in a weird town asking for help. We got a car scene that's all exposition. What in God's name was Hino talking about with his "it's gonna be different"? No, really what we have on our hands here is what I would consider a soft reboot, which for a new trilogy was a smart move. See, this game being a prequel meant that it could be a starting point to new players who had zero context of Layton, and with this intro could gradually understand what is the essence of a Professor Layton plot. On the other hand, old fans would appreciate the callback, and now we have Emmy, who offers the position of Professor Layton Stan. Let me clarify. Back during the first trilogy, Luke was our view into the world. He acts as the pupil who's learning like we are, and while yeah, this is a prequel game, for many of us it's our fourth game, so we can quickly resonate with Emmy's super knowledge point of view, understanding a lot about the professor despite just technically meeting him. And for the ones who've been playing since launch, rolling out a sidekick more mature and witty made a lot of sense. But this girl's not just a Professor Layton fan, she had to work by him. She begged the dean. And when the professor asks why, Emmy simply comments to herself that he's forgotten. Then the professor says some gender stuff that's about to be super negated in like 2 chapters. He reveals that they are heading to the rural town of Miss Tallery, where some ancient ruins were recently discovered. In fact, Miss Tallery might even be the location of the Golden Garden. Chapter 1. And cue the return of great town music atmosphere. Professor Layton is back, baby. Complete with Emmy's comment. It feels a little eerie. Yeah, fucking better. Miss Tallery is known for its thick fog, monsters, and it's got this whole canal system that's basically just Venice, which the game also makes sure to mention. So yeah, definitely reboot territory. We are back in a creepy small town. There is a structure standing in plain view that is mysteriously threatening. This is your everyday Layton, and I couldn't be happier. The first person we meet here is Aldous, who teaches us once again about hint coins. Tap it like you mean it, not just once and not just twice. We meet this kid who had to evacuate because the Oracle advised it, whatever that means. And we meet a police officer who says Miss Tallery is closed to visitors, and we meet a house that's been totally destroyed. Then a character named Brock shows up. Fun fact, he doesn't open his eyes and says that the witch's mark on the door sealed the fate of the house. And puzzle 6, spell out post. These are easy, man.
This took some creative thinking.
Ooh, talk about budget. All right, so it turns out that Clark Triton is actually the mayor. We are met at the Triton residence by one Doland.
I can't believe my eyes. Herschel, how long has it been?
Ah, so we are recycling voice actors now. I don't know, man, something about Clark's portrait. He just looks so fun. Like he's constantly in a state of shock because his eyes are just so open all the time, and I've always just assumed that he is surprised to hear everything.
We had McDonald's for lunch.
You got nuggies without me? You traitorous scum?
The 3 exchange introductions. Clark and the professor go way back, but when he asks why he suddenly visited, the professor shows him the letter. This surprises Clark, like actually, because he didn't write it. No, someone forged this letter using his name to bait the professor into the village. Although the letter is 100% valid, there is a monster that people think is the legendary Spectre, who used to protect the village. Professor asks about Clark's wife and son. Clark says his wife is away, and his son named Luke is in his room, acting withdrawn and retracted, so we decide to go meet the boy. He has us do a puzzle to get in, and I like this a lot because you don't have to do anything, like Earthbound style. The professor accuses Luke of being the one behind the letter, and...
Professor, you think Luke wrote the letter?
Are you really Professor Layton?
Is this true, Luke? Don't you turn your back on me again.
Clark, please.
Forgive me. The boy has barely spoken to me in the last 6 months. He's been so withdrawn since the appearance of the Spectre, I don't know what else.
Very soon, the world will end.
Oh, you mean like... apparently Luke says shit like this all the time, and he continues. Then, just as the conversation is getting good, Doland appears and says it's time for Luke to go to bed, even though it's daytime, but not before the professor can accuse him of one additional thing, being the Oracle. He's right. And to top it off, Mr. Oracle says that the Spectre will in fact be appearing tonight, and Doland is the one who's also been spreading the info to the villagers. Okay, but how is Luke able to tell? That's our 3rd mystery. Anyway, Luke joins the party. We go chatting and learn that he doesn't know where his mom is or why she left, teasing that her disappearance is more involuntary than Clark had us believe. Another NPC says there's mist whenever the Spectre attacks, and we check in at the hotel where the owner is enjoying a nice beverage. I don't blame him. It's the only way to make this more interesting, because that puts us at chapter 3, and I'm going to admit something to you guys. Even though this game's atmosphere is far superior to Unwound Future, holy shit, the pacing is just as bad, if not worse. I mean, it's about to be chapter 3, and all we've really done is acquire a boy. Compare this with the first 2 chapters of the OG trilogy. Someone had been murdered, Flora had gotten taken, we shot up an entire casino. The format of Last Specter's plot so far closely resembles Unwound Future, and I'm gonna guess this is because the reaction to that game was so strong that Level 5 wanted to recreate some of that narrative magic, especially towards the end, which we will get to, but Unwound Future essentially freed Luke and the Professor from their flavor of the week scenarios and dove into them as characters, and people loved it, so we got an entire trilogy based around their dealings of the past, how they met, their old friends and family, and there's nothing wrong with that, but the feeling of promotion pays off only once. We got the shock of seeing the Professor in human action for the first time, and then every time after, it's kinda like, well, we'll watch the movie and play the 3DS game someday. Anyway, I'm sure things are probably about to get exciting, so let me just hold my tongue and begin chapter 3. Reboot reference number 6. Luke chases a cat. We follow it to an aquarium where there's a coelacanth. Lady gives us a hard-ass puzzle that's only 30 picker. Guys, I can't do this. This is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be entertaining and thrilling. Why is the objective right now to investigate the cat's house? I don't want to investigate the cat's house. I want to see the big-ass monster. Oh shit, is it happening? All right, so the Spectre attacks and we hear a flute play just like in the intro of the game. We go outside to investigate and Luke tells us about the story of the Spectre's flute. Long ago when the town was under attack, the flute could be played and a mythical being would protect the town from attackers. Also, this thing is, he's here too. The Professor summarizes what he's found out about the Spectre. It attacks on misty nights, it only moves in water using Miss Tallery's canals, and when it appears, it starts grunting and growling. Luke says he heard something about an instrument being sold at the black market recently, maybe the fabled flute, and we make that the goal of tomorrow, which is chapter 4, but yeah, I'd like to talk about the puzzles. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like the puzzle to story ratio in this game is very uneven on part of the puzzles. For the first time ever, I was under the target amount at one of the puzzle gates. I don't know if that's because there's more of an emphasis on them being hidden, or perhaps because algebra, I guess that's what the hot thing was this time around. Then there's these puzzles with AI opponents, like the faucet one and the bottle one. These are some of the hardest I have worked in a puzzle, not gonna lie, but damn is it satisfying when it feels like I've just outsmarted an opposing physical entity, Joseph. There's a lot of puzzles where the rules don't outline what you can and can't select, so you just gotta try and like, do it. And puzzles like these have always been around, but I'm guessing with the 4th entry, they were really pushing more of the catch you off guard style puzzles. I don't know, I always try moving everything on the screen, so these didn't really faze me. Speaking of that, whee! But guys, I think I finally found it. I think I finally found the sliding block puzzle that made me hate sliding block puzzles. If you couldn't tell from the astounding 65 Picarat score, this goddamn puzzle is harder than diamonds. I spent like 45 minutes on it and listened to an entire album in the meantime. It was this one. I got to like 600 moves and then accidentally hit the reset button, so that was cool. Yeah, I didn't finish this. Like, I can't. I'm not good enough. I'm unworthy and pathetic, and when I die, Legendary Skyman is gonna be like, you didn't finish puzzle 26 in Last Specter, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, I know, and then he's gonna say PK Fire, and I'm gonna sit there incinerating like a Kane and totally complacent because I couldn't do it, guys. I couldn't! It's a Professor Layton game. You know what you're getting into. After 4 entries, they don't need to hide anything more. If they want a puzzle that's a math question on an exam, they can do that. Or a puzzle that bends your mind because you have to reimagine a 2D image in a 3D space, they have every right. Because while a lot of these puzzles might be what we're used to, or in some cases the literal same puzzle, they're still fun as hell to figure out. And that's something that this game can never mess up. I feel a lot better now. Shall we resume chapter 4? Okay, here we go. So, the next morning, Emmy is a zombie. I'm kidding, she's just hungover. I'm kidding, she's just apparently surprised Pikachu meme. We go outside and see Morning and Miss Tallery. Let me say, this shit is peak. While it is a creepy town with a secret like the first 2, it's also incredibly quaint and homely and filled with picturesque charm. Most of that is because of the music, but the aesthetic, the lush environment at work with the canals and cobblestone buildings, it's just so lovely. It would be cool to visit a lot of the Professor Layton locations we've seen this far, but Miss Tallery is the only one that I wouldn't mind living in. Anyway, we arrive at the market where labor laws do not exist because it's basically run entirely by children, and when you talk to them, it is discovered that many of them look down on Luke, coveting his situation for having Papa Mare and a nice house with servants. Obviously, they don't know that Luke's mom is currently missing or about his souring relationship with his father. But then,
Look out! Who's that? Stop there! Oh, no, you don't!
Emmy, no! Luke, wait!
All I took from this scene is that while the Professor and Luke are slowpoke mid-action, Emmy is agile, parkour able, combat trained, and... Hold on, she kinda... Okay, you know what?
Wife.
The man with the mask speaks with us, and his name is Black Raven. He leaves behind a clue. Then we talk to Tweeds, who gives us a puzzle that, for whatever reason, I decided to entirely draw out with my mouse. He gives us a Raven medal, and we need to find 4 to hopefully be accepted into the black market. We do that, and then we're underground, which should be another reboot reference, but like, they go underground in every game. Now finally, we are face to face with the Black Raven, who is in fact not one kid, but several, but also most importantly, Crow. Crow tells us about a year ago, some dude named Evan Bard bought a flute from the market, but then dropped dead. The professor says we should go to his house, but Crow advises against it because his daughter Ariana is known to be a witch. We ignore him and head there anyway because we are Professor Layton and snotty little back alley kids don't tell us how to live. Yeah, it turns out that foreboding house on the hill from earlier is the Bard Manor. Let me look up Bard pronunciation real quick to make sure I'm saying that. On the way, Emmy asks why the Spectre is destroying town, but it's healing super fast, and Luke says that's due to Grippe, an extremely wealthy man who hates Clark Triton but loves the town. We decide to go pay him a visit first, but he doesn't want to talk, and that's Chapter 4. Chapter 5, we go to the nice part of town and they have a police station as well as a dig site to where they believe the Golden Garden is. If you've forgotten what that is, that's because it doesn't really get brought up much unless you are talking to NPCs a lot, but a reminder that Miss Tallery supposedly has legendary ancient ruins close to it that are highly sought after, Atlantis El Dorado style. When we get to Bard Manor, we are greeted by Seamus, the gardener, who evidently is in the wrong damn business. He turns us down on meeting with Ariana, and then the game proceeds to make a whole mystery out of the identity of this gardener after 3 games of mind-bending plot twists. Like, shut up, you know exactly what is going on, we know exactly what is going on. Why does the prequel trilogy make such a stage for very obvious twists? I mean, it makes sense that the younger versions of our main cast would be more wet behind the ears. This is Luke's first adventure, but dude, this is the mystery for a half hour, and we all just have to pretend like, ooh, who is it? Gee, in the hallway, we come across a picture of Ariana and her brother. And then we come across Ariana.
How'd you get in here? Who are you?
She says she knows nothing about anything, and...
I'm a witch. I bring disaster to those around me.
What are you talking about?
Go!
Why are you doing this?
Go!
What? Hold on.
Go!
Agent Sarg.
Go!
I don't know, for 3 people breaking into her home, she's pretty calm. But that's because she knows Luke, revealed in the next cutscene, which is a flashback.
Adults talk about the most boring things, don't you think? All they talk about is politics.
Yep.
And the weather, too.
Nope.
Yeah. Let's get out of here. Wow. I know. Amazing, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, did you see that, Luke? Yeah. What did you wish for?
Layton and Smash. Anyway, we get kicked out by the gardener, and Luke reveals the reason why Ariana is so standoffish. She is dying. Yeah, that's fair. They agree that to get her help, they need to disprove her as the witch, so they go to town. I'm really gonna fast forward this part. They hear Seamus is heading to town, so they follow him into the market and learn that the candy lady is out of candy. They find a witch's mark and see a candy wrapper next to it. Gee, what's going on? So we head back to Bard Manor, where Layton is ready to destroy some feelings using facts and logic. Guys, Seamus, he's not actually a gardener or old. He's the little brother we saw in the photo named Tony. Holy shit! And he's been painting witches' marks on people's houses who speak ill of the Bard family, which led everyone to believe that she was cursed. doing this completely behind her back, but none of this matters because we just get kicked out anyway without more info on the flute or the Spectre.
Why, Papa? How could you leave us?
Glad he's gone.
You reap what you sow.
Ariana, are you alright? Is there anything I can do?
Don't touch me! Go away! Go back to your nice family and your perfect little house! I hate you! I hate everyone!
Ariana? Just go and leave me alone. I mean it, Luke.
Shortly after that, Luke talks about how he believes the Spectre has the power to control and warp minds, leading to his distance relationship with his father and his mother leaving, which Clark is also being kinda shady about. It also might have an effect on Ariana, as we saw in the scene of her reacting to her father's death and swearing off Luke and the rest of everyone else, but more likely from a psychological standpoint, everyone cheered on her father's death, and that's why she resents the world. And the professor verifies Luke. He says Clark wasn't his usual self that he remembers. The key to all this is in Evan Bard's mysterious death, so they head to the police station to research it, but learn the archive files are in Scotland Yard back in London. Is that where it is? So Emmy takes it upon herself to travel back and acquire them, which is all of Chapter 6, played entirely from her perspective. It's her own cutout plot, which would be really cool, but most of it is just puzzles in the form of where is Inspector Growski, and when we finally find him... Okay, level 5, we get it. Emmy is a fierce, badass woman who is thankfully our ally, because if she wasn't, she could subdue us in one fell swoop.
Wife.
None of that matters, because you know who else we meet in this chapter? Inspector Growski, Emmy, along with inferiors Chelmy and Barton search for the files, and they find it. Chelmy points out that having only one eyewitness for a death is strange, and gets brownie points from Growski. Then Growski and Emmy prepare to go back to Miss Tallery together. That's the chapter. There's not really much going on here, but I think Chapter 6 is the chapter where, if you hadn't already, we kinda learn to fall in love with Emmy. Just doing the team a huge favor and being so reliable mentally and physically, she really is a great addition, but then you gotta ask yourself, if you are as keen on your senses as these games should have trained you to be, then the elephant-shaped question in the room is, what happens to her? We talked about how prequels have a bit more restriction in their narrative layout, but that's also kind of why they're so cool, because you know that by the end of them, they have to be in a form suitable for the sequel to occur, and as we know, Emmy is not here, or here, or here, so what is going to happen with this wonderful new companion we've made that'll lead to her absence in the original trilogy? And then, on top of that, why are these minigames so awful? Okay, dog, so we got our 3 minigames this time around, and each of them is going to seem extremely familiar. The best one is the train minigame, to which you might remember the car minigame from last time. It's basically the same thing, engine and all, pun intended, where you build a course, have to get the train to all its destinations, and to the goal with only a set amount of resources. And while I enjoy this about as much as I did that minigame, calculating for the moving car tracks is really annoying and leads me to do so much counting in my head, especially with a big train. I did a few of these, and then I was good. Unlike the fish minigame where I did the first 2, started the 3rd, and yeah, I don't want to be anywhere near this. This one is most similar to the parrot minigame, and in its defense, it's much easier to telegraph the fish's movements rather than rely on random gravity like with the bird. But that's also the best part of that minigame, only not actually, because it has to be perfect, and they both suck. No more fish, no more birds, we only like hamsters that sound like they smoke Newports.
I'm not so good at moving and stuff.
Lastly, there's the puppet show. This is also pretty similar to the picture book from the last game, except you're now using words and phrases instead of pictures. And you gotta put them in the right spot so that the story makes sense. It's kinda just tedious, not challenging at all. The real challenge is actually finding all of the terms. And without using the icons from the past games like in Unwound Future, it doesn't feel as rewarding. For beating these mini games all the way, you get the same thing you always do. The house challenges featuring the hardest puzzles in the game. Woo friggin' who. So much for the game that's supposed to be a new experience. But I'm gonna go a little easy on it because the prequel trilogy did do something else kinda cool. Did y'all notice this? Yeah, the episodes. These are neat little backstories that give more context to the NPCs as to why they are the way they are. Why Hannah loves Growski, why Grepe hates Clark, why Goosey is whack as fuck. There's even one episode that features bonus cutscenes detailing the story of how Emmy met Layton. Essentially, he cleared her name after she was accused of stealing, and she forever was indebted for that. These complement the plot right up until the end, but most importantly, it adds so much depth to the characters. There's even a little bit of unwound future lore in here. So I don't mind the minigames being mid, as long as I had another reason to open the trunk. But if that still wasn't good enough for you, well then level 5 was including quite a special gift. See, I said I wasn't hyped for this game, but there was one thing they did announce that made my soul evaporate, which was a special mode to be featured in Last Specter called London Life. This was an RPG that was going to be developed by Brownie Brown, who also had a hand in the development of a little game called Mother 3. For those of you unaware, it's the sequel to Mother 2, aka Earthbound, aka the game Ness is from if you've ever played Smash or heard. It's a pretty wacky JRPG that, true to its series, is kind of a genre parody where instead of fighting monsters, you fight trees and instruments, and it's really funny, but like the third Professor Layton, has dark and serious undertones that you would never gather from the art style of the game. But I bring up Mother 3 not in the context as some random video game. This just happens to be my favorite video game of all time. And as many of you will probably know, despite every fucking person in the world asking for a worldwide release of Mother 3, including the Pope, Nintendo has just never done that. They have essentially just left the game dead and buried. So, can you imagine what it feels like to hear that the developer of your favorite game, a neglected game, is making a 100-hour RPG side mode to go with the next Professor Layton title? And it gets crazier because as reviews started to come out for this game, a lot of them were comparing it with another series, which I normally wouldn't mention, but do you know what that series was? Can you fucking imagine what this feels like? A 100-hour RPG made by the Mother 3 guys, set in the world of Professor Layton, that feels like Animal Crossing. And the result was, really none of that. This was a game where you kind of just walked around, did trivial mini games, put on different clothes, and had a small little story. I mean, it definitely looks like Mother 3, and I guess I can see why they compared it with Animal Crossing. Different stuff happening at different times of day, characters going about their business and moving around the map, with the whole customization aspect where you can dress up, put furniture in your room, get bigger rooms, etc. Probably the most Crossing-esque it gets is how much fun it is to interact with your neighbors, who are all Professor Layton characters. You can go see Barton and he'll say something charmingly himbo, and then go see Beluga, who is just the same small greedy man he always is, or Rosetta, who just 24/7 simps. It's a colorful mishmash, that's basically the charm, but it's not perfect, the biggest flaw being that it was for some reason cut from the European version of the game? Which makes no sense considering how popular Layton is there and the fact that it came out after the US version and that you literally named it London Life, and the London Life cannot play it. As far as the 100-hour comment that Hino used to market it constantly, I would say it's closer to like 10. But they must have got good impressions because they went on to make Fantasy Life after this, which recycled a lot of this game's DNA. I have personally never played that, so I cannot comment on it, but I just want to say that this was a super cool inclusion. Also, play Mother 3, it's really good. Okay, so coming off that massive tangent from Chapter 7 onward, all that pacing they've been holding out on is about to come crashing forward, so I hope you guys are ready. Let us resume. Now, at the same time Emmy leaves on her excursion, we flash over to what will eventually become the iconic duo who are hitting the streets for more info on Mr. Bard's death. On the way, Luke shows off a book he has detailing every single spot the Spectre has attacked in the town, and the professor is astounded that a child could keep such a record. Asking around about Mr. Bard, we instead learn about Chief Jakes, who's the top dog in the police force and apparently just a really talented and cool dude. He's so good at figuring out crimes, he sees everything. It's like he has a third testicle. But if he's such a hotshot force of power in the town, why did the game wait to make any mention of him until Chapter 7? Professor Layton doesn't care, he just wants to see the dig site for the Golden Garden because he is a professor of archaeology. You know that meme every time the professor is shown doing his actual job? Well, here he is having legitimate hobbies too. And at the dig site, there's really nothing, but Luke does tell the professor that his dad started acting weird right before he became the mayor, and the professor agrees once again that Luke is right, dude is tripping. We decide to go to the library to meet up with Emmy, and I hate this chapter because we cannot stay on task. The only thing we ever even found out about Mr. Bard was that apparently he gouged rent and people hated him for that, and that's it. The newspaper doesn't even mention his death, but when we meet Emmy and Growski, we learn that he fell from a cliff in either a suicidal or accidental manner. And there was just one witness, Clark Triton, who is also the sole beneficiary in the will discovered later. The gang see no mention of the Spectre's attack in today's newspaper either, and quickly figure out that someone is covering everything up. They make their way to the station, and we meet the legendary Third Eye Jakes. Why is this man Wart from Super Mario Bros. 2? So we begin speaking with Jakes, and right away, he is just going for it the entire time, saying that he didn't investigate Mr. Bard's death and that Layton sucks at his job, and finishes with a very firm, "Get out." He gives us 24 hours to leave town. Then... Okay, this is why pacing matters. Jakes is clearly set up to be a bad guy here, but being introduced so late into this game meant we had to fulfill the entire high die trope in just one encounter, thus providing this scene so he can be boldly painted as evil. This could have been avoided if they had introduced him earlier, and it would have made more in-game sense and more in-game suspense as we gradually realized he was up to something, but nope. They waited until so late in the game, and it's just like, okay. Giving us these descending interactions that feel so unreal. You waited for us to confront you, and then you told us to leave? Whatever, we go to see what this Clark info is about, and to take the time to process all this Jakes nonsense, I play with the mailbox for like 10 minutes. Clark maintains that he saw someone fall off a cliff, and that's basically all there is to the story. He doesn't know why he was selected for the will, especially over Bard's own kids, but he accepted it as him and Evan got along well enough. And just as things are starting to really heat up between him and the professor, Doland appears saying it's time for dinner, and Clark insists the professor join him, having him choose the wine to pair. So we go to the wine cellar so we can pick a drink. You know, that's really the ultimate Professor Layton puzzle. What wine goes best with steak so you can be pleasantly sauced? And Emmy thinks she hears something, but it's nothing. Maybe just Doland, who we tell, nah, forget dinner, we're gonna go ahead and head home, and so we decide to do that. But then...
What's this?
Gentlemen, I hope we're not going to have any trouble here.
Your methods are unorthodox, but very effective.
Violence.
You know, I do admire that the three of them are constantly getting shit from everyone. You got the actual monster that comes out at night, but also uncooperative children, corrupt police, and now just random thugs. They're like the nicest people ever, and everyone just fucking hates them. Builds into an atmosphere that's a lot more threatening, and I kinda like that. Also, funny journal entry after this. Now, Chapter 8. Since the Spectre never strikes the same area twice, Layton theorizes that it will next strike
High Yard Hill.
And Luke goes and confirms it. He says he's not a prophet, but rather just looks at the water level of the canal to predict the Spectre. If it's lower, that means the area will be hit by the Spectre that night. Emmy asks how he's been able to tell the entire time if he's been holed up in his room, and Luke pulls out a See, Luke being able to talk to animals has always been one of those cute quirks, like, yeah, he can really understand animals, not he's unraveling the plot by using a mouse named Toppy. But this series is known for its crazy twists, even though this is less crazy and just more stupid. So can they Toppy that? Yes, they can. Consider this an appetizer. Professor Layton says rather than have Doland evacuate the residents, we'll do it ourselves, because he's gonna set a trap and settle this once and for all. Cut to a scene of Third Eye talking with the same mysterious man in the room, and we most definitely understand that this dude is big bad. So Luke says we should have Grepe evacuate the citizens because he'll do it, so we hunt him down and he says he'll do it, but first a puzzle. It's the flower puzzle from Diabolical Box, and it's a lot of fun. Then we hunt down Crow to tell him that we need his help to create a trap that will... the screen goes black because it's gonna be one hell of a spectacle for us. Fast forward to nighttime, and it's misty, and the gang is preparing for the arrival of the Spectre.
It's coming!
Huh?
The Spectre! I can feel it!
I hear it, but I can't see anything.
So this is a Spectre.
The professor catches a glimpse of the Spectre face to face, and just as he is about to reveal what it is, Chief Jakes has the gang arrested. With everyone now jailed, the professor wonders how Jakes knew of the Spectre attack even though they made an effort to not alert the police. Then it cuts to a scene of Jakes telling Mysterious Man that he got him, and Mysterious Man clearly understands that Professor Layton is not to be taken lightly, and that he's probably breaking out right now. Yep. And after that, we go to investigate the damage. Layton sees the pipe, and he has an epiphany. He wants to get baked. The reason the flute is heard all over Miss Tallery is because the pipe. See, it turns out whoever's playing the flute, which is a pipe in and of itself, is playing in front of the large opening pipe, and then it echoes in these smaller pipes spread throughout the city. When Luke points out that the largest pipe opening is outside of Bard Manor, we head there, beginning Chapter 9. Chapter 9! Not shockingly, we find Ariana outside the lake at Bard Manor, saying that she knew that the professor would figure it out. She begins to play the flute, and...
I don't believe it.
It's a monster! Come on now. Come on. Come on, stop it.
Professor, is this the Spectre?
This is our good friend Lucia. She comes from an ancient race. Isn't she beautiful? I think she's one of the last of her kind.
Hey, that's cool and all, but now we have a problem. These are a hard stretch. A town filled with perfect sentient and uncanny robots, a hallucinogenic gas that affects everybody similarly, a dumpster fire budget to rebuild London underground. They are all very, very, very far reaches, but they are all within the grasp of a man-made imagination. But this, even though it's probably easier to explain and more likely to occur in the real world than any of what's in the first 3 games, is just straight up where we dive into the magic side of things. And there's nothing wrong with that, but when mystery meets fantasy, the rules kind of start to bend a little bit as far as logic goes. Like, guessing the plot twist is fun because we're always thrown clues as to what's really going down. But if we're going to bring in elements unlike the world the professor is based in, ours, then that makes things kind of difficult. Case in point, every mystery from here onward can just be the work of some otherworldly concept that we didn't think of, and it's just not as thrilling. I think between the fact that they have Lucia as a plot device, plus including London life, and that they were working on Ni no Kuni and Dragon Quest IX, Level 5 was kinda starting to miss their JRPG roots at this point. because both of this game's sequels and the spin-off get wildly carried away in that aspect. But for now, I want to stay as open to this as possible, so let's just act natural and roll with it. So, Lucia here is a big aquatic ancient animal, and she's very friendly, as you can see. Alas, she is not the Spectre. She fights the Spectre, and Ariana plays the flute to calm her down. In a lot of ways, she is the legendary guardian that people know of in Miss Tallery. But just as Ariana is about to tell her side of the story,
Fire at will!
What are they doing?
Jakes, what is this?
Stop! You can't do this! Ariana, no! Tony! Mr. Layton, we have to help Ariana!
Luke.
We can't just let this happen!
Luke.
Come on, what are you waiting for? We have to
Luke,
catch up
calm
with
down
them!
for a moment.
What do you mean, calm down?
She'll be fine. I give you my word on that, Luke. Remember, you can only help Ariana if you keep a clear mind.
A clear mind.
next, consoling Tony, we send him with a message for Crow and assure him that it's gonna be okay. Actually, Crow himself points us in the direction of the old factory, which is our next destination, except not yet, because for the first time in this series of replays, I don't have enough puzzles. Man, that's cringe as fuck. It's not like 1 or 2, it's 12 puzzles. What have I been doing this entire game? So coming back with 81 puzzles solved, we enter the abandoned factory to learn it's not abandoned, and that they're building something. Yeah, this is also the last game all over again. They're building steam machines. Not the portable switch killer kind, but the killer kind, and they have a secret plan and know where the Spectre's gonna attack. Then they have us do puzzle 135, which I don't... Look, there's puzzles that I don't know the answer to, and then there's puzzles that I don't know the like, what do you want us to do? You want me to play Clubhouse Dots and Boxes, and I don't really get how, and then just all of a sudden I guessed it right.
That puzzle was no problem.
Yeah, it was.
What is that?
That beast is the infamous Spectre.
Everything's ready. You sure you want to go?
Why, of course. I wouldn't miss it for the world. I have been waiting patiently for the perfect moment to make my grand entrance. The final act belongs to me. Herschel Layton, I hope you are prepared to play your part.
And with that, we transition into Chapter 10, where things are about to get really, really crazy. So before we go ahead and do that, how about we have one final intermission? And that final intermission is actually today's sponsor, which is you guys. Oh, it's so cheesy. No, for real, these Layton videos are a ton of fun, and I love doing them. It's almost like therapy to play these games again and talk about them. And I'm really glad that people out there enjoy this as much as I do. So basically what I wanted to just say was thanks for watching this far. Thanks for waiting this long. It's been a year and a half since I came out with the first one, and we're only on the 4th game. And I know that not all of my content is Layton themed, so I really appreciate you guys for holding out and sticking around. And we are far from done, and that I would like to create other kinds of Layton content that don't take months and that delve more into opinions and weird facts, kind of like the ranking video. So movie next time, so hopefully we don't have to wait as long, because it's like a 90-minute movie, 100-minute movie. So hopefully we can come out with that. But it's about to be real interesting, okay guys? So let's go ahead and do this Chapter 10 and finale. Chapter 10. The trio leaves the factory and runs into Crow, who says they have Ariana in the plaza and things are about to go down. Layton says he has a plan. There's several fades to black, again, just so he can say, meet me in the plaza, because, yeah, it's gonna be cool. Which we then cut to, a scene unfolding of Ariana protecting Lucia, and just as it looks like she will be falsely declared as the plague of the town, the mighty professor appears to debunk the whole mystery. So are we ready? Let us do it again!
Miss Tallery, I now give you the Spectre.
This is an excavating machine. It's used to dig up artifacts.
Very impressive.
A digger, eh?
Can we please just call it an excavating machine, please? Okay, guys. So Lucia is not the Spectre. Rather, she is one half of the Spectre. The other half are these machines that have been trying to dig around the town in search of the Golden Garden, and when they go tearing the town apart, Lucia comes to fight them, and that is somehow the Spectre that everyone has been seeing. The flute Ariana plays helps Lucia calm down, and the digging machines explain the sinkholes, and the reason for the water being lowered is that the commissioner of the machines is creating fog to cloud the onlooker's sight. And I guess you could kind of buy that, but the thing they've been showing us the whole time as the Spectre is just not... Dude, I don't know.
A gentleman rarely resorts to punchlines.
But as for the person who's been employing these machines, the person ripping the town apart to find the Golden Garden, Layton's got them pinned.
It was someone drawn by the lure of the Golden Garden. A person willing to destroy the town to satisfy a lust for personal glory. Someone who now stands among us.
No, it wouldn't be right.
This same person is responsible for spreading lies about the Spectre all over town. And that person is you!
What?
There must be some sort of mistake, Mr. Layton. I'm just a butler. How on earth could I have done any of this?
So, Doland, you know, the guy who's been stopping the conversation whenever it gets good, is responsible for kidnapping the butler and Luke's mom and forcing him to keep quiet while his accomplice Jakes went and iron-fisted the town, which I don't think is an acceptable use of that phrase.
Layton!
And the mouse shows up again to remind us that he is part of the plot while Emmy locates Luke's mom and butler in the basement.
It is clear enough that you are not Doland Noble, the Triton family's faithful butler. So tell us who you really are.
You are correct, Professor Layton. It's time to end this charade.
Oh my god, there he is, guys!
Indeed. My name is Descole. I am an artistic man of science with rather lofty goals.
Descole?
It really is a pity. I had high hopes that the Golden Garden was here. It was all such a waste of time. And this meaningless town, I'll have my fun by destroying it.
And at that moment, Descole summons his machines to begin wreaking havoc on the town, and Chief Jakes runs away while the gang helps to untie Ariana. All hell is breaking loose.
Quickly, everybody, this way!
Well now, I believe the time has come.
Now this is a final boss fight, let's call it like it is. because we're directly taking on the villain and with the most awful, difficult, brain-busting puzzles you can imagine. And the vibes through this entire fight are amazing because the music does not stop during the puzzles. Everyone is pitching in, Emmy taking down the machine, Luke dodging attacks, the professor plotting a counter. It is a battle for the town to save the town, filled with soul and spirit. And once our puzzles are done, we are ready.
We're ready!
They have yet to give up. Such admirable tenacity. What's this?
Now, Mr. Layton! Direct hit! That was amazing, Mr. Layton!
Is that it?
Doubtful. Very doubtful.
But just as it seems we're done, Mr. Man rebuilds and starts a second attack. While Lucia runs to the floodgate and enlists the aid of the kids.
What should we do? Break down the floodgate. But why? To protect the town. Huh? Just trust me.
Huh?
Can you hear something?
What is it?
It's water.
Hurry, run!
Huh?
We're lucky to have a friend like Lucia.
Fortune favored you today. Savor this victory, Layton. Only certain defeat lies in your future. Witnessing your downfall will be delicious.
Impossible! The Professor will never lose to the likes of you!
Such spirit in this one. Layton, soon you will see that you cannot defeat me. But I believe that is for another time.
Duskale just leaves, and this is just... another amnesiac Professor Layton villain.
I feel as though I've seen him somewhere before, but I can't quite remember where. Duskale.
Reboot reference 33. Random scientist revealed in final hour hates the professor, and he can't exactly remember why. Well, with this, the game should be over, but that takes us to the epilogue, and I think just judging from the illustration here, we know what's about to happen. See, if you ask me, this is where the game could have ended, but then Lucia begins to react violently.
Ariana, the flute.
Oh.
It's not working! Stop that right now! Lucia, if you break that gate, the entire town will be flooded! Lucia, please stop it.
Why won't she listen? What do you want? What are you trying to do? What? She said there's no time. No time? What is that supposed to mean?
Get back! The gate is giving way! Get to higher ground, everyone!
So with our signature theme, Lucia floods the town, draining the lake and revealing some sort of seal. And here is the final puzzle. Birds. Once we solve the puzzle, the seal opens and the party finds...
The Golden Garden.
It is a pristine, thriving ecosystem within a closed space, and the professor reveals... its air being so pure may be able to cure Ariana's sickness. Where the what science is this, Professor? I've been to the Midwest and I wasn't cured. But Lucia knew this, leading Ariana here intentionally, which is also a convenient time for Lucia, well...
What's the matter? Lucia! You brought us here for me, didn't you? I'm sorry. I didn't understand. You wanted to give me this gift. This beautiful gift. Lucia? No! You can't die.
Lucia. She used her last ounce of strength to bring you to this wonderful place. She sacrificed her own life to be sure that yours would be saved.
It's not fair.
Did you hear what she said?
What?
I understood it. Lucia said,
See you at McDonald's.
In our final scene, Ariana plays the flute to send off the soul of Lucia, and as one last reboot reference, the professor denies the fortune that could be his retirement and takes the small child that he saved along with him. And that is the game. Well, until after the credits, when we see Luke preparing to leave with the professor, Ariana says goodbye. Yo, courtship is a wild endeavor, my friends. And a year later, she is healthy and alive. The Golden Garden makes the paper, and the mysterious villains tease a non-specific sequel. All right. Overall, I'd say this was a solid conclusion to the game. The battle against Descolet stands as one of my favorite moments in the series just because it's filled with so much heart and emotion, and the theme of the last battle has an amazing live version. Go listen to that. I do think Jean Descolet casually entering and leaving while we gain nothing but his identity was kinda weak. He just felt like an endgame obstacle, while Chief Jakes was the pre-endgame obstacle, and at the end, he's like, I'm gonna leave, and then he just leaves. What? Emmy, go kick his ass. Not that I don't understand why they did this. The game needed to establish his role for the movie and 2 sequels, but the only thing that really bothers me is him deciding to destroy the town out of spite at the end. To me, this is kind of over the top and doesn't really fit his character. And then Lucia, I think her death was a little forced to be an emotional tinge on the plot that was once again inspired by the ending of the last game. In fact, basically every game after the 3rd game will attempt to make you cry, and most will succeed. Because her death is still incredibly sad to me, mainly because kids in distress actively struggling to conceive death. And even if I think it's a bit cliche, the concept of our companions giving everything for us is very relatable. Hell, I mean, if there's one moral that I took from this playthrough of the game that I didn't then, it's that the kids who don't have good relations with the adults in their lives might have something even better. Animals. Shout out to the animals. They help us, they care for us, and they bring us puzzles. Except the parrot and the fish, you guys are still contraband. Man, where are the horses in Professor Layton? I think it's about time for a horse. If I could describe Last Specter in one word, it would be strange, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The strange roots of the environment are one of the most enthralling parts of the game. It's why I can kinda look past the pacing issues. Unwound Future had bad pacing too, but also a mundane atmosphere, where this game goes slow as hell for the first half, but I don't mind, cause Miss Tallery's a good time. That said, when the plot twists do finally start hitting, they exist between what the fuck and what the fuck. Like, for a series that is already known for its crazy reveals, boy, It's broken up into tiny arcs where the game constantly pulls stuff out only when it's convenient. The Golden Garden is mentioned at the beginning of the game, then isn't relevant again until Chapter 7, where the game also rolls out Chief Jakes in the next chapter, then Lucia, then finally Descolle. When things like Emmy's backstory are completely optional, and as far as I can tell, the details surrounding Evan Bard's death are never even made clear. And then a few Deus Ex finales. Luke's mom is just in the basement, and Ariana is magically cured. Whatever, fine. It's just really, really weird, even for these games, but the thing that seemed to upset most people was that it was, quote, lowered stakes. When this game came out 12 years ago, it felt like the first time a Professor Layton game was not met with overwhelming praise, but just praise and some mixed reception. Some outlets said that the game was disappointing, and that Layton's charm was wearing out. If you look at the sales, they somewhat reflect that. Or the fact that this game still hasn't gotten an HD re-release like the other 3DS games. Or just maybe, personal anecdote, when I finished the first Layton retrospective, everyone started asking where's the second one, and then again with the second one they said where's the third game? But let me tell you, only like 2 comments were there saying when is Last Specter. General audiences just didn't feel as strongly about this entry of Layton, but those same audiences felt very strongly about the last entry of Layton, and therein lied the issue. What if I told you that almost half the time I criticized this game throughout the video was in a comparison with Unwound Future? Well, this is the very reason I do these retrospectives, to single out the game for itself. But back in 2011, after the epic finale of the original trilogy, it's all people had on their mind when starting the new one, no matter how disconnected it was supposed to be. The truth is, Level 5 putting this game out on the DS and directly after Unwound Future with virtually no downtime, but also as the first part in a prequel trilogy, created a bit of what Hino calls a scaling issue. You can't go from the heroic tale about love, loss, and saving the city to well, actually this kinda has all that too. But to an origin story with no gameplay changes, no huge execution of story buildup, and not nearly as much room for character growth because it's, again, a prequel. At the same time, can you really blame people for comparing the two when the minigames, the narrative sequencing, the ending, when it all feels so familiar? I don't know. Look, I just think if you had any complaints about this game, you should replay it and try and focus on just what's here because, quite honestly, it's absurd. And that's like somehow the best part. It's a return to form, it introduces great new characters, and the puzzles never disappoint. Nowadays, I feel like the general opinion of this game has improved significantly since launch, because probably there was just 4 games out at the time and this was the first one to take the tumble. But looking back, people probably started to be nicer to this game maybe around the time of... disregard this ending. Actually, we have to watch the movie next time. Voyan's very first time reviewing a movie ever on this channel. And then we will get to the 3DS games. Okay.